So the first thing we need to set up for our timer is an event. So let's click the timer. We have the properties, but instead of the properties, click this orange lightning, and that's where our events are. And in this case, for timer, there's only one event possible, and that's the tick. Let me just move it a little higher. So you can see that the tick occurs whenever the specified interval time elapses. Alright, so to create an event, we simply select the event we are interested in this case the tick, and in the next text box we will simply enter the name of the event that we want to set up. Now in this case I want to call it TIM timer underscore tick. This is quite a standard that the event is called the same as the element or the object that it applies to, and then underscore, and then the event that you are calling or that you want. You can actually name it whatever you want. This is just a little standard, but you can literally name it ABC whatever, so the name itself is not really that important. It just makes sense to name it this way. You can also see that there's a drop down here. So when I click it, you can see that we have already two events. We have the exit and we have the clear, but we're not interested in those. We are creating a different one for this tick. So when I click it now, let me just hide the properties. Here is the time tick event that was created. So how do we set up the correct time? Well, remember, we set up two variables, one for the elapsed time and one for the time of the timer's last tick. And if the timer is on, then the last tick was a second ago. But when the timer was paused, it was of course just before it was paused when the last tick occurred. So to calculate the elapsed time, we will simply add to it all the time that elapsed from the last time we pressed the start button until we pressed pause button. So we will get our elapsed time plus equals, we are adding to it, and we are adding to it our current time that we are in right now. So we'll do the date time. Remember, I told you we will use the property now, which gets the date time object that is set to the current date and time on this computer. So from now minus whatever the last elapsed time was that was saved in the last elapsed variable. So basically we get our current time minus whatever was set or saved from before. So we have our elapsed time calculated, and now we have to set our last elapsed to be the current time. Because remember, this happens every tick or every second, so this is being refreshed and the time is being stored in last elapsed variable in case a pause button is clicked, because we will need to save the time when the pause button is clicked so we can calculate later how much actual elapsed time happened or occurred. And finally, we display the time in the text box. We want to display it in hours, minutes, and seconds format, and for example 66 seconds is 1 minute and 6 seconds rather than just 66 seconds. So to display it in this format, we can use the time span. Remember, the elapsed time is of type time span, but the text box of course needs a string, so we need to convert the string first. So our timer text box where the time is gonna be displayed, so txt timer, but I don't have it here, so I think if I go to my properties in the view and property windows and I check the timer text box to see what it's named, and yes, I forgot to name it, it's just textbox1, which I don't want. I want it txt timer. Okay, so if I go back, so now we should have the timer txt timer dot, and yes we do, we have the text property. So now we can do the convert to string, since again we are dealing with the time span. we have to convert it to string. And here we actually wanna format the time span with the hours, minutes, and seconds. So we'll create a new instance of the time span, and you can see that there's 5 overloads. So the first one, it takes, for example, number of hours. So our hours are in elapsed time dot hours. Remember, elapsed time is time span, so it has access to all these time span methods. So the next one, as you can see, it's asking for minutes. So again, it's gonna be elapsed time dot minutes. And finally, elapsed time dot seconds. Let me just put it down here so you can actually see it. So that will be displayed in our timer. So to recap what we just did, we added the time that passed between now and last tick to our elapsed time. We reset our last elapsed variable to the current time, and we displayed everything in the text box formatted for hours, minutes, and seconds, and we were able to do it simply because we are passing the time span which has access to the hours, minutes, and seconds, and we're converting it to string to display in the text box, because obviously text box expects a string. So now we are ready to code the button functionality of the timer.